Hi everyone, welcome back to my class. Students, this session is the continuation of the lesson tissues. So in this session, you will understand about bit more detail about the tissues, differentiation between the plant tissue as well as the animal tissue, and you will also understand about the different types of plant tissue. It is very important to watch this video because the entire plant tissue you will understand in this session. Okay, so then what is a tissue? Have we define a tissue? See, when I talk about the tissues, you always have to remember the level of organization. You have understood about the different levels of organization, correct? So the basic level is the cell, because cell is considered to be the basic structural and functional unit of life. Correct. So the cells group together, they form the tissues. Then the tissues, they group together to form the organ group together to form the organ system, and finally an organism is formed. So this is what you have understood in the previous session. Correct. So then how can we define the tissue? See, tissues are the group of cells. The group of cells which have the similar structure. See, when I say similar structure, the structure is not completely same. It is not completely identical. Okay, the group of cells which have the similar structure, they combine together. Correct? So the group of cells which have similar structure, they combine together and they form the tissues. And these tissues, they perform the specific function in particular organ. See, when I say function, the function may be the digestion, circulation, excretion, respiration, control and coordination. There are so many functions which takes place in our body. Okay, so these functions, the specific function is performed by the group of tissues. Clear? So when I talk about the tissues, do all the tissues look similar? No, right? Because see, when we look at the plant cell as well as the animal cell, the plant cell as well as the animal cell, they look different in their appearance. If you look at the plant cell as well as the animal cell, they do not look same. So their tissues are also not look similar. Okay. So now let us talk about the differentiation between the plant tissues as well as the animal tissues. See, when I talk about the differentiation between the plant tissues as well as the animal tissues, most of the plant tissues are dead supportive tissues and they provide the mechanical strength. Clear? Most of the plant tissues are dead supportive tissues. When I say supportive tissues, that means they provide support to the plant. Because the plants are fixed at one position, right? The plants are fixed at one position. So that is the reason the plants need support. So most of the plant tissues are dead supportive tissues, and these tissues, they provide a strength to the plant. And for the plant it is okay even though their tissues are dead. Clear? So if we talk about the animal tissues, most of the tissues which are present in the animal, they are living tissues. Why? Because the animals are not static. That means they are not fixed at one position. They move from one place to another place. Correct? The animals, they move from one place to another place. So the cells present in their body, they actively participate in lot of functions which takes place in its body. The functions, as I told you, there are a lot of functions like digestion, respiration, excretion and so on. There are a lot of functions. The cells present in the body of the animal, they actively participate in all the functions. So most of the tissues which are present in the animals, they are living tissues. Clear? So now let us talk about the second point. See, when I talk about the growth is limited at specific region of the plant. So the dividing tissues are localized in those regions. See, when we look at the plant does not grow uniformly. That means not all the parts which are present in the plant grow together. Correct? I hope you all have observed the growing plant. When you sow a seed, what happened first? The root develop, then the shoot develop, then the leaves develop, then the leaves increase in its size, then the flowers develop, then the fruits develop. Correct? Not all the parts which are present in the plant will grow uniformly. Correct? So they grow step by step. So the growth is limited to specific regions. And if you look at the shoot and root, what happened? They keep on growing. So there are certain regions in the plants where the growth is more. Take an example, shoot and root. The growth is more in the shoot and root compared to the leaves and other parts of the plant. So we call those regions as the dividing regions of the plant. Because the root part and shoot part is continuously growing, right? So we call that plant as the dividing region. And a region where the growth is not prominent, that means not continuous, we call those regions as non-dividing regions of the plant. Clear? So when I talk about the plant tissues, the growth is limited to the specific regions and the dividing tissues are localized in those regions. So when we talk about the animal tissues, growth is almost uniform throughout. That means, see, when we look at the small child and an adult, see, if you look at a small child, the growth is uniform. That means the growth of the fingers, the growth of the legs, the growth of the face, everything will be uniform according to its age. Even when we look at the adult, see, his height is increased compared to the small child, and the size of the hands, size of the legs, size of the body, size of the face, everything is increased. So the growth is uniformly increasing as the baby is growing from the smaller age to the next level. Okay, so in the animals, the growth is uniform throughout. Clear? I hope you have clearly understood about the plant tissues and the animal tissues. We spoke about the structure and the function of the plant as well as the animal tissues. Clear? So now let us understand about the plant tissues in detail. So when I talk about the plant tissues are broadly classified into two tissues, that is meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. Plant tissues are broadly classified into meristematic tissues and the permanent tissues. So now let us talk about the first group, that is the first category, that is the meristematic tissue. See, when I talk about the meristem means it is divided. That means the group of cells which fall under the meristematic tissues, the group of cells have the ability to divide. The group of cells, it have the ability to divide. Hence, we call them as the meristematic tissues. And these tissues are present in certain regions. So, the plant's growth is restricted to those regions. Meristematic tissues are present in the certain, only few regions of the plant. So, the plant growth is restricted in that particular region where the meristematic tissues are present. We call them as meristems. What do we call? We call them as meristems. Clear? Meristematic tissues are the group of cells which do not have the ability to divide. And this meristematic tissues, it is further divided. It is further divided into three types. If you look at this diagram, you will clearly understand. The first one is the apical meristem, second one is the intercalary meristem, and the third one is the lateral meristem. Clear? Okay, now let us talk about each of this in detail. So, apical meristem. When I talk about the apical meristem, so these are the meristematic tissues. They present at the growing tips of the shoot as well as the root. Apical meristem, they are present at the growing tips of the shoot as well as the root. So what is the function of it? It increases the length of the stem as well as the length of the root. See, if you look at the apical meristem, so this complete stem part is increasing as well as the complete root part is also increasing. It is because of the presence of the apical meristem. Clear? Apical meristem is a type of meristematic tissues where it is present at the growing tips of the shoot as well as the growing tip of the root. It helps in increasing the shoot as well as increasing the root. Clear? So moving to the second type of meristematic tissues, that is intercalary meristem. See, intercalary meristem is present at the base of the leaves. It is present at the base of the leaves or internodes on twigs. See, when I say twigs, if you observe this plant, see, take an example. So it's a plant. What happened? The leaves extend from the stem. So what happened? There are further branches. Sometimes it further branch, sometimes it further branch. So this branching we call it as twigs. So this is the internode. So these are the twigs. We call it as twigs and twiglets. Okay. So basically what you have to understand, intercalary meristem, they are present at the base of the leaves or the internodes on the twigs. Okay. So moving to the third type, that is the lateral meristem. What is the function of lateral meristem? See, the lateral meristem, it helps in increasing the girth of the stem or root. What is meant by girth? Girth means thickness. See, if you observe a tree, what happens? It has the thickness. Correct. See, if you observe a tree, it has the thickness. This is what we call it as thickness. So, the lateral meristem, it helps is increasing the girth, that is thickness of the stem and root. If you observe this part, see, in this plant, this part is increasing. Both the stem as well as the root. Both the stem as well as the root, they increase in its thickness because of the presence of the lateral meristem. Clear? So you have understood about the three different types of the meristematic tissues. So let us once recall about this. So you have understood about the apical meristem, intercalary meristem and the lateral meristem. So what is the function of apical meristem? See, the apical meristem is a type of meristematic tissue. It is present at the growing tips of the stem as well as the root. It increases the length of the stem as well as the length of the root. Clear? So talking about the intercalary meristem, it is present at the base of the leaves, correct? And it is also present at the internodes on the twigs. I have told you, twigs means further branching from the stem. So third one was the lateral meristem. It helps in increasing the girth, that means thickness of the stem as well as the thickness of the root. Clear? So this is what about the meristematic tissue. That was the first category under the plant tissue. Clear? So now let us talk about the next category, that is the permanent tissue. See, when I talk about the permanent tissues, these are the tissues which do not have the ability to divide. Permanent tissues are the tissues, they do not have the ability to divide. Clear? So these permanent tissues are also further classified into two types. The first one is the simple permanent tissue and the second one is the complex permanent tissue. Simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue. Now let us understand about the simple permanent. Again, this simple permanent is further classified. See, do not confuse. Firstly, we spoke about the tissues, that is the plant tissue. Plant tissues are further classified into meristematic tissues and permanent tissue. Clear? So again, now we are talking about the permanent tissue. Permanent tissues are two types. The first one is the simple permanent, second one is the complex permanent. So now we are talking about the simple permanent. Simple permanent is further classified into parenchyma, cholenchyma and sclerenchyma. Clear? Simple permanent is further classified into parenchyma, cholenchyma and sclerenchyma. So let us talk about the parenchyma. See, parenchyma, if you look at this image, you can observe the parenchyma. So this is representing the parenchyma. So these parenchyma tissues, they are loosely packed. Here if you observe the tissues of the parenchyma, they are loosely packed. There is lot of space between them. That means they have the intercellular spaces. Parenchyma tissues, they have the intercellular spaces between them. What is the function of it? The parenchyma helps in storing the food. Clear? Parenchyma, it helps in storing the food. So this parenchyma is further classified into two types. The first one is the sclerenchyma and the second one is parenchyma. See, all the names are very new for you. So don't feel bored to listen this. As it is new, you can once again listen to understand even better. So when I say sclerenchyma, sclerenchyma means it contains chlorophyll. You all have heard about chlorophyll, right? See, chlorophyll helps in performing the photosynthesis in plant. You know what is photosynthesis and why photosynthesis takes place in the plant. Correct. See, parenchyma is further divided into sclerenchyma and parenchyma. So, sclerenchyma means it contains chlorophyll. It helps in performing the photosynthesis. Parenchyma, air means it is something which is related to air. Air means what? The things will be floating in the air, correct? So, when I talk about parenchyma, so it helps the plants which are present in the water to float. The plants which are present in the water will float. You have observed that, right? So it is because of the presence of the Parenchyma. Clear? Sclerenchyma and Parenchyma are the two types of the Parenchyma. Clear? So if you observe the Parenchyma, so they are the tissues which have the space between them. They help in storing the food. So now let us talk about the Sclerenchyma, which is the second type of the simple permanent tissue. So Sclerenchyma have the thickened ends. See, if you observe these ends of the cells, see they have thickened. That means thickness is present. The end of the cells have the thickness. The Sclerenchyma have the thickened ends. They help in flexibility of the plant. That means the plants move, right? The plants bend. That is what we call it as flexibility. The plant will not stand straight all the time. Correct. It shows some movements. That is what we call it as flexibility. The flexibility is all because of the presence of the Sclerenchyma. Okay, it allows the plants in easy bending without breaking. The plants when they are moving because of the wind, they do not break. They bend even though they do not break. It is because of the Sclerenchyma. The Sclerenchyma have that means the cells which are present under the Sclerenchyma, they have thickened ends. Clear? So this is how the longitudinal section of the Sclerenchyma looks like. So now moving to the third type of simple permanent tissue, that is the Sclerenchyma. So Sclerenchyma are the tissues. They are composed of long, narrow and thickened cells. See, they are the long, they are the narrow and they also have the thickened cells. And this tissue is made up of the dead cells. Please remember, when I say Sclerenchyma, they are the tissues which are made up of the dead cells. Tissues which are made up of the dead cells. They do not have the intercellular spaces. Sclerenchyma tissues are the tissues where the cells which are present under these, they do not have the space between them. There is no intercellular spaces between them. Okay, and most of the Sclerenchyma cells, they are dead. And where do these Sclerenchyma tissues are present? See, these tissues are present in the seeds, nuts, husk of the coconut and fibers of jute. Okay, so these are the places where the Sclerenchyma tissues are present. Clear? I hope you have understood. Once again, let us recall. So you are understanding about the second type of tissues, that is the permanent tissues. The permanent tissues are further classified into simple permanent and complex permanent. So under simple permanent, you are learning about Parenchyma, Sclerenchyma and Sclerenchyma. So these are the pictures which are representing the Parenchyma, Sclerenchyma and Sclerenchyma. Correct. So Parenchyma are the tissues which have the intercellular spaces between them and they help in storing the food. And this Parenchyma is further classified into Sclerenchyma and the Sclerenchyma and the Parenchyma. Chlore means it contains chlorophyll, help in photosynthesis. Parenchyma help in floating the plants under the water. Clear? And the second type which you have understood was the Sclerenchyma. The Sclerenchyma have thickened ends. When you observe the cells of the Sclerenchyma, see here they have the thick ends. The cells of the Sclerenchyma have the thick ends, correct? And they allow the plants for easy movement without breaking. So the third one was the Sclerenchyma. These are the tissues which are composed of long, narrow and thickened walls and they are made up of the dead cells. Okay, and they have and they do not have the intercellular spaces. Clear? So now let us talk about the second type of permanent tissues, that is the complex permanent tissues. See, complex permanent tissues are called as vascular bundles. Okay, they are made up of more than one type of cells and these cells, they coordinate to perform the common functions. Okay, the cells which fall under the complex permanent tissues, they coordinate and they perform the one common function. Okay, so now this complex permanent tissues, they are further classified into two types, that is the xylem and the phloem. Xylem, it helps in conducting the water and minerals. Okay, and the movement of water, it takes place from the roots to the stem. So it is always unidirectional. See, the water from the root moves like this to the shoot part. So it is always unidirectional. Okay, xylem conducts the water and minerals from the roots to the different parts of the plant, and the movement of water is always one direction. We call it as unidirection. Then what about the phloem? Phloem helps in conduction of the food. It transports the food, and the food is transported to the various parts of the plant. So it is bidirectional. As food is transporting to the various part of the plant, the leaves prepare the food, right? From the leaves it will be transported to the different parts of the plant. So it is bidirectional. Phloem help in transporting the food. The food is transported in both the direction. We call it as bidirection. Let us observe the structure of the xylem as well as the phloem. So this is how the xylem and the phloem tissues looks like. See, if you observe the xylem, they have the perforated walls. See, the perforated means they have the small holes on their surface. They have the perforated walls. So these walls, they help in conduction of water and minerals from the roots to the different parts of the plant. And the xylem is composed of various types of cells. The various types of the cells are the tracheids, vessels, as well as the Xylem Parenchyma. So if we observe the structure of xylem and the phloem tissues, it looks like this. See, the xylem tissue, it have the perforated walls. The walls of the xylem tissue have the perforations, that means small holes. We call it as pits. It helps in conduction of water and minerals to the different parts of the plant. Okay, as well as when I talk about the phloem have the sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. These are the different cells which are present in the phloem. So what are the functions of these? See, when I talk about the sieve tube which is present in the phloem tissue, sieve tubes, it help in conduction of food. They also have the perforated ends. Sieve tubes, here you can observe the sieve tube. They have the perforated ends. They help in conduction of food. Then talking about the companion cells, they help in the movement of sugar as well as the amino acids in and out of the element, that is sieve elements. So when I talk about the phloem fibers, it gives the mechanical support to the phloem. So when I talk about the fibers, they are something which is the hardest part. Okay, they are providing the mechanical support to the phloem. So lastly, when I talk about the phloem parenchyma, see, phloem parenchyma also help in transporting the food. Clear? So let us once again recall about the various cells which is present in the xylem as well as the phloem. The important thing which you have to remember is xylem help in conducting the water and minerals. Okay, so from which region? From the roots to different parts of the plant, and always the movement of water is unidirectional. And when I talk about the phloem, see, the phloem help in transporting the food, correct? And the food is transported in bidirection because food is prepared in the leaves. From the leaves, the food is being transported to different parts of the plant. Clear? So xylem is composed of various cells. The various cells of xylem, as we have discussed by looking at the tissues, are the tracheids, vessels and xylem parenchyma. So what is the function of tracheids? Tracheids are the tube-like structure. If you observe this, they are looking like a tubes, correct? So the tracheids are the tube-like structure. They help in transporting the water as well as the minerals vertically. So what about the vessels then? See, vessels are also tube-like structure. So unlike tracheids, the vessels also help in transporting the water as well as the minerals. So moving to the xylem parenchyma. Xylem parenchyma, they help in storing the food as well as they help in the sideway conduction of the water. When I say parenchyma, they help in storing the food. Do you remember sometime before I have been explained you? So now let us talk about the different cells which the phloem is composed of. See, the phloem is composed of sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. Clear? So when I talk about the sieve tubes have the perforated ends. You have observed this image, right? See, sieve tubes, they have the perforated ends. They have the perforations and they also help in the conduction of the food. So talking about the companion cells, they help in the movement of sugar as well as the amino acid which is present in the plants. Okay, and phloem fibers, they give the strength or support to the plant. And phloem parenchyma, again when I say parenchyma, it is related to food, so it helps in storing the food. Parenchyma, it helps in storing the food. So finally, now let us understand about the difference between the xylem tissue as well as the phloem tissue. The first important difference is xylem helps in conduction of water and minerals from the roots to the different parts of the plant. Phloem helps in conduction of materials from leaves to the different parts of the plant. Clear? So moving to the next difference, xylem, it consists of tracheids, vessels and xylem parenchyma. Phloem consists of tubes, companion cells, phloem fibers and phloem parenchyma. Correct? And xylem has the thick cell walls and phloem has the thin cell walls. Under xylem tissues, they are made up of dead cells except xylem parenchyma. So talking about phloem, phloem are made up of living cells except phloem fiber. Except phloem fiber, all the cells which are present under the phloem are living cells. Okay, so when we talk about the movement of water, conduction of water and mineral is unidirectional, correct? So when I talk about the xylem, the water travels from the roots to the different parts of the plant, so that will be in one direction. We call it as unidirectional. So when I talk about the phloem, the food travels from the leaf to the different parts of the plant. So the transportation of food is bidirectional. Clear? I hope you all have clearly understood about the plant tissues. Okay, so in the next session, I'll be explaining you about the animal tissues in detail. That's all for this session. I'm signing off. Thank you.